Have you ever seen a room full of adults learn what courage looks like from an 8-year-old child? Chicago, Illinois, September 1951. The Velvet Room was an intimate jazz club where Billie Holiday had just finished her final song of the evening. As the applause died down and people began gathering their coats, a small figure approached the stage. What this little girl whispered to Billie Holiday would stop the music, silence the room, and teach everyone present a lesson about living that they would carry for the rest of their lives. If you love discovering the untold stories behind music history's most incredible moments, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell because we uncover the hidden gems that shape the legends we know today. The Velvet Room, Chicago, September 15, 1951, 11:20 p.m. The intimate jazz club held maybe 60 people, and tonight it had been packed. Billie Holiday had just concluded her second set with I'll Be Seeing You, and the audience was giving her the kind of respectful, appreciative applause reserved for transcendent musical experiences. In the back corner, at a small table near the exit, sat Dr. Margaret Chen and her 8-year-old daughter Lucy. Dr. Chen was a pediatric oncologist at Chicago Children's Hospital, one of the few Asian American physicians in the city. She'd brought Lucy to hear Billie perform because Lucy had been asking about the jazz records her mother played at home. But there was another reason Dr. Chen had wanted Lucy to experience live music tonight. A reason that made this evening both precious and heartbreaking. 3 weeks earlier, Lucy had been diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. In 1951, this was essentially a death sentence. The chemotherapy treatments available were primitive, and the survival rates were almost non-existent. Dr. Chen, despite all her medical knowledge, could do nothing to save her own daughter. The doctors had given Lucy 6 to 8 weeks to live. Dr. Chen had decided not to spend those weeks in hospital rooms or treatment centers. Instead, she wanted to fill Lucy's remaining time with beauty, with music, with all the experiences that made life worth living. Tonight was part of that plan. As the applause for Billie's performance began to fade, Lucy stood up from their table. She was a small girl even for 8, made smaller by the illness that was consuming her. But her eyes were bright with intelligence and curiosity. "Mama, can I talk to the singer lady?" Lucy asked. Dr. Chen hesitated. She didn't want to impose on Billie Holiday, but she also couldn't deny Lucy anything during these last weeks. "We can try, sweetheart. But she might be tired after performing." Lucy nodded seriously and began walking toward the stage. Dr. Chen followed, watching her daughter navigate through the adults who were finishing their drinks and preparing to leave. Billie was packing up her sheet music when she noticed the small figure approaching. She looked down and saw Lucy standing beside the stage, looking up at her with wide, serious eyes. "Hello there," Billie said gently, kneeling down to Lucy's eye level. "Did you enjoy the music tonight?" "Yes, ma'am," Lucy replied politely. "You have the most beautiful voice I've ever heard." Billie smiled. "Thank you, honey. That's very kind of you to say." Lucy looked around the club, then back at Billie. There were still about 15 people in the room, finishing conversations, settling their bills, putting on coats. "Miss Holiday," Lucy said quietly, "can I tell you a secret?" Something in the child's tone made Billie focus completely. "Of course, sweetheart." Lucy stepped closer and whispered, "The doctor says I have weeks to live." The words hit Billie like a physical blow. She looked into Lucy's eyes, searching for some sign that this was a child's misunderstanding or imagination. But Lucy's gaze was steady, serious, resigned in a way that no 8-year-old should ever be. "What did you say?" Billie whispered back. "I'm very sick," Lucy explained matter-of-factly. "I have something called leukemia. Mama doesn't think I know, but I heard the doctors talking. They said I probably have 6 weeks left." Billie felt the world shift around her. She'd encountered pain, suffering, injustice throughout her life and career. But something about this child's calm acceptance of her own mortality was devastating in a way that Billie wasn't prepared for. "Sweetheart," Billie said, her voice barely audible. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," Lucy said, "I wanted to hear real music before I die. And your music is the most real thing I've ever heard." Billie looked around the club. People were still chatting, laughing, living their normal lives, unaware that 8 feet away, a dying child was having the most profound conversation of her short life. Without thinking, Billie stood up and walked back to the microphone. "Excuse me," she said, her voice cutting through the ambient conversation. "Could I have everyone's attention for just a moment?" The club gradually fell silent. People turned toward the stage, expecting perhaps an encore or a final thank you. But Billie didn't sing. Instead, she knelt back down next to Lucy and spoke into the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to meet someone very special. This is Lucy, and she came here tonight to hear music." Lucy looked up at Billie with surprise. She hadn't expected to become part of the performance. "Lucy," Billie said gently, "would you like to tell these people what you told me?" Lucy looked around the room at all the adult faces now focused on her. In that moment, she had to choose between the privacy of her illness and the possibility of connection. "I'm dying," Lucy said simply, her small voice carrying clearly through the club's sound system. "I have something called leukemia, and the doctors say I have about 6 weeks left." The silence that followed was complete. No one moved, no one spoke, no one even seemed to breathe. "But," Lucy continued, "I'm not sad about it tonight, because I got to hear Miss Holiday sing, and her music made me feel like being alive is the most beautiful thing in the world." Billie felt tears streaming down her face. Around the room she could see other people crying, some covering their mouths in shock, others reaching for their companions. "Lucy," Billie said through her tears, "would you like to sing a song with me?" Lucy's face lit up. "I don't know how to sing like you do." "You don't need to sing like me. You just need to sing like Lucy." Billie helped Lucy up onto the small stage. The 8-year-old looked tiny standing next to the microphone, but she stood straight, facing the audience with remarkable composure. "What song would you like to sing?" Billie asked. Lucy thought for a moment. "Do you know Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star?" Billie smiled through her tears. "I know that one." What happened next was unlike anything anyone in the Velvet Room had ever experienced. Billie Holiday, one of the greatest jazz vocalists in history, began singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star as a slow, gentle jazz ballad. Her voice transformed the simple children's song into something profound and beautiful. Lucy joined in with her small, untrained voice. She couldn't match Billie's technical skill, but she sang with pure joy, pure presence, pure appreciation for being alive in that moment. "Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are." The effect on the audience was transformative. Adults who had been worried about their jobs, their relationships, their petty daily concerns suddenly found themselves confronted with what really mattered. Here was a dying child celebrating the simple miracle of existence through song. Up above the world so high like a diamond in the sky. When they finished, the silence stretched for nearly a minute. Then slowly one person began to applaud. Then another. Soon the entire room was on its feet, but this wasn't applause for entertainment. It was recognition of something sacred, something that transcended performance. Lucy looked around at all the standing adults and smiled the biggest smile anyone in that room had ever seen. Billie knelt down beside her again. "Lucy, that was the most beautiful song I've ever performed." "Really? Really? You taught me something about music tonight." "What did I teach you?" "You taught me that music isn't about being perfect. It's about being alive. It's about celebrating every moment you get to make sound, to share joy with other people." Dr. Chen had been standing at the back of the room, crying silently. Now she approached the stage. "Lucy, sweetheart, we should probably head home." But Lucy turned to Billie with another question. "Miss Holiday, can I ask you something else?" "Of course. When I die, will you remember this song we sang together?" The question broke something inside Billie. "Lucy, I will remember this song every single day for the rest of my life." "Good," Lucy said with satisfaction. "Because that means a part of me will keep making music even after I'm gone." The wisdom of this statement, coming from an 8-year-old child, left everyone in the room speechless. As Dr. Chen helped Lucy down from the stage, people in the audience approached them. Not with pity or awkward condolences, but with gratitude. "Thank you for sharing your daughter with us," one woman said to Dr. Chen. "She taught us something tonight that we needed to learn," a man added. Lucy accepted the attention with grace, shaking hands with adults, answering their questions about her illness with startling honesty and composure. "Are you scared?" one person asked. "Sometimes," Lucy admitted, "but not tonight. Tonight I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." As people began to leave the club, Many stopped at Billie's table to thank her for what she'd done. But Billie deflected the praise. "Lucy did that," she told them. "I just gave her a microphone." After the club had emptied, Billie sat with Dr. Chen and Lucy for another hour. They talked about music, about life, about the things that make existence beautiful even when it's brief. "Dr. Chen," Billie said finally, "would it be possible for me to visit Lucy during her remaining time?" Dr. Chen looked at her daughter, who nodded eagerly. "Lucy would love that," Dr. Chen replied. "And so would I." Over the following weeks, Billie visited Lucy 3 times. Each visit included music. Sometimes Billie would sing, sometimes Lucy would, sometimes they would sing together. Dr. Chen said later that those musical sessions were the happiest moments of Lucy's final weeks. Lucy died 6 weeks and 2 days after their first meeting, exactly within the doctor's predicted time frame. But according to Dr. Chen, she spent those last weeks with a peace and joy that defied her circumstances. "She kept talking about the song she sang with Miss Holiday," Dr. Chen told friends. "She said it proved that her voice would live forever, that music never really dies." Billie Holiday attended Lucy's funeral. It was a small service, but she sang "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star" as a gentle jazz ballad, just as she and Lucy had performed it at the Velvet Room. After the service, Dr. Chen approached Billie. "Miss Holiday, I want to thank you for what you gave Lucy in her last weeks." "What did I give her?" "You gave her the experience of being fully alive. You showed her that her voice mattered, that her presence in the world had value. That's the greatest gift anyone can receive, especially someone who's dying." "She taught me more than I taught her," Billie replied. "She showed me what courage looks like." The story of Lucy and Billie's duet spread throughout Chicago's music community. Musicians began to understand their work differently, seeing performance not just as entertainment, but as potential healing, connection, and affirmation of life. The Velvet Room instituted a monthly Lucy Song Night, where musicians would perform with children, celebrating the joy of music making regardless of technical skill or professional ambition. Dr. Chen used her daughter's story in her work with other families facing pediatric terminal diagnoses. She would tell them about the night Lucy sang with Billie Holiday, about the peace and purpose Lucy had found through music. Music gave Lucy a way to process her mortality, Dr. Chen would explain. It helped her understand that even though her life was going to be short, it could still be beautiful, meaningful, complete. Pediatric hospitals began incorporating more music therapy into their programs, recognizing that children facing terminal illnesses needed opportunities for joy and creative expression, not just medical treatment. Billie Holiday never spoke publicly about Lucy, but people close to her said the encounter had changed her understanding of her own work. She began visiting children's hospitals regularly, performing for young patients, understanding that music could provide comfort in ways that medicine could not. 5 years later, when Billie was interviewed about the most meaningful performance of her career, she said, "I once sang Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star with a little girl who was dying. She taught me that the most important audience isn't critics or record executives. It's anyone who needs to remember that being alive is beautiful." Did the experience change how you approach music? "It taught me that every performance might be someone's last chance to hear music. Lucy came to my show knowing she was dying, and she chose to spend one of her final evenings listening to jazz. That's the kind of responsibility every musician carries. You never know who in your audience needs music to help them live, or to help them die." The interviewer asked what Lucy had taught her about life. "She taught me that accepting mortality isn't about giving up," Billie replied. "It's about deciding how to spend whatever time you have." Lucy chose to spend hers making music, sharing joy, teaching adults about courage. She lived more fully in 8 years than most people do in 80. Dr. Chen continued her work in pediatric oncology, but she also became an advocate for integrating arts therapy into children's medical care. She established the Lucy Chen Foundation, which brought musicians into hospitals to perform for young patients. Children facing terminal illness need more than medical treatment, Dr. Chen would tell medical conferences. They need opportunities to experience beauty, to create, to feel that their lives have meaning beyond their diagnosis. The foundation's mission statement included a quote from Lucy's final conversation with Billie Holiday. "Music never really dies. When we sing, a part of us keeps going forever." 20 years after Lucy's death, the Velvet Room installed a small memorial plaque near the stage. In memory of Lucy Chen, who taught us that the most beautiful music comes from celebrating every moment we're alive. But perhaps the most fitting tribute to Lucy came from the children who participated in the Foundation's music therapy programs. They would often end their sessions by singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, not because it was assigned, but because they'd heard the story of the little girl who sang it with Billie Holiday and discovered that even the simplest songs could be profound when sung with complete presence and joy. Today, music therapy is a recognized treatment modality in pediatric hospitals worldwide. Therapists working with terminally ill children often reference Lucy's story as an example of how music can provide comfort, connection, and meaning even in the face of mortality. The lesson Lucy taught that night at the Velvet Room continues to resonate, that life's value isn't measured by its length, but by the depth of connection, joy, and beauty we create while we're here. And that sometimes the most important teachers come in the smallest packages, with the biggest hearts, showing adults what it really means to be fully alive. The impact of that September evening extended far beyond the immediate participants. Word of what had happened spread through Chicago's medical community, then throughout the country as other healthcare professionals heard about the 8-year-old girl who had sung with Billie Holiday just weeks before her death. Dr. Elizabeth Morrison, who ran the children's ward at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, heard about Lucy's story from Dr. Chen at a medical conference. The idea of children finding peace and purpose through musical expression resonated deeply with her own observations of young patients. I'd seen children facing terminal diagnoses become withdrawn, depressed, focused entirely on their illness, Dr. Morrison explained years later. But Lucy's story suggested a different approach, helping children maintain their sense of joy and creativity, even in the midst of medical crisis. Dr. Morrison began inviting local musicians to perform in her pediatric ward. The results were immediate and profound. Children who had been listless and despondent began showing interest in their surroundings. Families found new ways to connect with their sick children through shared musical experiences. Other hospitals began adopting similar programs. The concept spread from Chicago to Detroit, then to New York, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles. Within 5 years, music therapy programs for terminally ill children existed in major medical centers across the country. The programs weren't just about entertainment. Medical professionals discovered that musical engagement could have measurable physiological benefits: reduced pain perception, improved immune function, better sleep patterns, and increased appetite. But perhaps more importantly, music gave children like Lucy a sense of agency and purpose during a time when they felt powerless against their illness. Dr. James Patterson, who established one of the first formal music therapy training programs at Johns Hopkins University, credited Lucy's story with inspiring his career path. When I heard about this 8-year-old girl who chose to spend her final weeks making music, I realized that healthcare was missing something fundamental, Dr. Patterson said. We were so focused on treating disease that we'd forgotten about nurturing the human spirit. Lucy showed us that even children facing death could be teachers, creators, sources of inspiration for adults. She proved that terminal illness doesn't have to mean the end of joy or purpose. Dr. Patterson's program trained hundreds of music therapists who went on to work in hospitals, hospices, and care facilities worldwide. They carried with them the lesson Lucy had taught, that music could provide comfort and meaning even in the darkest circumstances. The Lucy Chen Foundation, established by Dr. Chen 15 years after her daughter's death, became a model for similar organizations. The foundation not only funded music therapy programs, but also trained medical professionals to understand the emotional and spiritual needs of terminally ill children. Lucy taught us that children facing death don't just need medical treatment, Dr. Chen would tell audiences at foundation fundraisers. They need opportunities to experience beauty, to create, to feel that their existence matters beyond their diagnosis. The foundation's work expanded beyond hospitals to include support for families, training for healthcare workers, and research into the psychological benefits of creative expression for terminally ill children. One of the Foundation's most successful initiatives was the Final Song program, which connected professional musicians with children in their last weeks of life. The program was directly inspired by Lucy's duet with Billie Holiday. We learned that many children have musical experiences they dream about, explained Sarah Williams, the program director. Some want to sing with their favorite artist. Others want to learn an instrument. Some just want to perform for their family. The Final Song program makes these experiences possible. We connect children with musicians who understand that they're not just performing. They're helping create precious memories and meaningful closure. The program served hundreds of children over its 20-year existence. Musicians who participated often describe these encounters as the most meaningful performances of their careers. Jazz pianist Marcus Johnson, who performed for over 30 children through the program, said, "These kids teach you what music is really for. It's not about fame or money or critics. It's about connection, about sharing something beautiful in the time we have together." I've performed in concert halls around the world, but nothing compares to playing piano for a 7-year-old who knows she's dying. Those performances remind you why you became a musician in the first place. The story of Lucy and Billie's duet also influenced how the music industry approached charitable work. Record labels began partnering with children's hospitals to provide musical experiences for young patients. Artists started dedicating portions of their tour schedules to hospital performances. What had begun as one spontaneous interaction between a dying child and a jazz singer had grown into a movement that changed how society thought about children, death, creativity, and healing. But perhaps the most lasting impact was on the way people understood the relationship between music and mortality. Lucy's calm acceptance of her death, combined with her joy in musical expression, challenged common assumptions about how people, especially children, should respond to terminal illness. Lucy wasn't denying her mortality, Dr. Chen reflected in interviews years later. She was embracing her life. She chose to spend her remaining time doing something that brought her joy and connected her with other people. That choice, to focus on living rather than dying, became a model for how we approach pediatric terminal care. We learned to ask not just how can we extend life, but how can we ensure that whatever life remains is meaningful and joyful. This philosophy influenced medical training programs, which began including courses on the emotional and spiritual care of dying patients. Healthcare workers learned to see their role not just as prolonging life, but as supporting patients in living fully whatever time they had. The influence extended to how families coped with terminal diagnoses. Support groups began emphasizing the importance of continuing to create positive experiences and memories, even after receiving devastating news. Parents of terminally ill children found hope in Lucy's story. Not hope for a miraculous cure, but hope that their children could still experience joy, purpose, and connection despite their circumstances. Lucy's story gave us permission to celebrate our daughter's life, even while we were grieving her approaching death, wrote one parent whose child had participated in the Foundation's programs. We learned that acknowledging mortality doesn't mean abandoning joy. Today, when medical professionals work with families facing pediatric terminal diagnoses, they often share Lucy's story as an example of how children can find meaning and peace, even in the most difficult circumstances. The simple children's song that Lucy and Billie sang together, "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star," became a symbol within the pediatric medical community. It represented the idea that profound beauty and wisdom could emerge from the most unexpected places, that even the simplest expressions of creativity could carry deep significance. Music therapy training programs use the song in their curricula, not as a technique to be learned, but as a reminder of the principles underlying their work, that music serves humanity's deepest needs for connection, expression, and meaning. Lucy Chen lived only 8 years, but her impact on how society understands childhood, mortality, and healing continues decades after her death. Her conversation with Billie Holiday lasted perhaps 10 minutes, but it sparked changes that have touched thousands of lives. The lesson she taught, that life's meaning comes not from its duration but from the love, joy, and beauty we create and share, remains as relevant today as it was that September night in 1951 when a dying child taught a room full of adults what courage truly looks like. In the end, Lucy Chen's greatest gift was not the song she sang, but the reminder that every moment of life contains the possibility for profound connection and transcendent beauty, no matter how brief that life might be.